Welcome to the
abstained.
Monday, April 1st, 2024, Bryan City Council Chamber, Bryan City Council, Bryan City Council meeting. Please stand for the pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 2 is approval of minutes from March 18th.
Second?
Rick?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And Mary?
Yes. Item number 3 is hearing of public concerns.
Good evening, I'm Bill Metz, resident of Bryan for a long time. From the last council meetings, council made a statement concerning the audio-video recordings, and by the statement made, I'm assuming you got a proposal that Mr. Betts requested from somebody? Because the meeting prior to that, Mr. Betts asked for a proposal of what it was going to take with equipment and things that I had proposed. So based on the strong statement that was made by council, I assume you have a proposal from somebody?
You know what, you do. Derek Schultz sent you some information back. Would you like a records request of that?
Sure.
Could you, after the meeting, provide me with your email address? I think I have it, but
It's no longer.
okay, so
Well, with that, I'll continue on. I'd like to know what it is because from the people in the tech world that I come from, a couple $1,000 in each one of these, chamber and BPA, basically the issue comes down to cameras. And as I said before, that's a fraction of the $40,000 that BPA provided previously with the old system, not using OBS or anything else. I'll share with you that there are contractors in Bryan, when they don't want to do a job, they'll come out and give you a quote or an estimate, but they'll pad it, and they'll pad it heavily, because they're hoping you don't select them. There's those contractors that also come out, and depending on what your last name is, they pad your bill. That I feel is what BMU is doing. They don't want this project. They want to get out from under it. And if you haven't been watching it, the communications department is slowly weaning back, little by little, lots of things. You're worried about safety. That shouldn't even be the concern of this council, or that should be your network provider. But currently, you're starting and stopping remotely these recordings, so you're already connecting remotely. You're already connecting to get the audio file, which it doesn't matter whether it's an audio video or audio only. You're connecting it to get it downloaded so you can push it to the BMU YouTube. You mentioned in 2022 that the average views were 177. I'm not going to spend the time and go back and look at it. I already provided you what they were for 2023. And you referenced that there was 8,600 population in the city of Bryan. Well, only about 16.6 of that is 18 years of older. So technically about 518 people would potentially look at viewing the 2022, which was 34% of the population of Bryan. In 2023, based on my calculations from what I could pull, about 28% viewed. Believe it or not, since the first of the year, you're bottoming them out at 36 viewers. So your continuing view rate, because as I said before, put your blinders on and go watch your favorite TV show. You're not going to do it. I threw out early on in the process when this was being discussed about an outside service, not tied to BMU, just an outside service. Has that even been looked at? Apparently not. I also noticed that it was said that the following day that the recordings would be published to the BMU YouTube pages. I can tell you right now that sometimes it's 2 days, 3 days, sometimes it has to send a reminder to communications, when's it going to be published. And I can tell you right now, and I don't know if it's an on purpose or something happened, but the 319 BPA meeting still has not published as of tonight.
can I May I say something?
Sure.
So I was on vacation last week, and actually Anna from the Village Reporter had emailed me about that meeting. It appears that BMU has now switched to Spotify, which I only knew because the director, I forwarded it to Derek Schultz, and then he responded to both of us and said, no, it's on there. It's now under the platform of Spotify. I just got back today and have not had time to dig through the website. So I think it's up.
It is up on Spotify. 'Cause
Okay.
I had the same, I was looking for it on YouTube.
For your minutes?
Yep, same thing.
Okay, so that's part of the issue that hasn't been communicated to my knowledge. Did they communicate it with you?
Just an email back from KB that's,
Okay.
I don't think there's anything
So,
official yet.
so some of
It's
this.
in the works kind of a thing.
Like, very respectfully, some of this is a BPA issue, and I would request that you address them.
I will.
It's their employee that is posting that. They are the network provider for the city. So a lot of these things, we have to rely very heavily on their departments, and that, I'm going to just stop this, Ms. Leatherman, since I took a minute of his time. But some of that is just not things that the city council oversees, and they do have to take the recommendation of the BPA.
I guess I'm here because Bryan City Council made the first motion to discontinue this, and then it followed suit with BPA.
It's because our
So-
meeting was first.
And I'm bringing this to your attention, things that are going on, which now, once again, oh, surprise.
Well, I was surprised.
I just think that I did a little bit of research myself and contacted about 10 communities and asked them what they're doing with their councils versus recordings, publishing the agenda, the minutes, et cetera. Anybody other than Bryan, there was only 2 that are doing audio only. If anybody's doing any kind of recording, they're doing both audio and video. And one of those 2 told me that they're in the process of launching a new webpage, which is going to include audio video. It was also surprising to me the number that were live streamed, and much smaller communities than Bryan. Not my problem, I'm just throwing it out there. For a community that's just got awarded the Community of the Year, I think they should be a leader, and we should not be looking at what somebody else is doing and following them. We should be leading those communities. But I can tell you right now, there are options to step away from BMU and do it off your network, not connected to your network, as long as you don't want to live stream it. And you could go back to audio video and no longer talk about the cost prohibitive versus cost feasibly, et cetera. You could cap your cost, you'd know what they are, but somebody needs to make the decision that you want to do it, because there's no reason to spend a whole lot more time on this. I've already spent a silver platter giving BMU how to get there. The only question was cameras. And they obviously don't like that, because as the contractor inflates his rate. So, by the way, I am no longer a BMU internet subscriber. I've waited 90 days for them to fix the spamming and issues, and the answer I got wasn't acceptable. The meeting that was held on the 19th, I couldn't attend because of other commitments, and I really wanted to hear that recording, but I listened or read what was in the Bryan Times, and be honest with you, in my opinion, BMU is residential internet's on its way out. So there's no use to fight it. There's no use to continue. Just pull the plug. For what it's worth also, we always talk about the spectrum theory that Mr. Hoopy we talked about before when we were talking about cable. Well, believe it or not, Spectrum has a base rate that's 5 times faster than the Bryan's internet and 20 times faster on the upload for $24.99. It's not a special, it's a flat rate. Costs you $65 to have it installed. I called them one day, they installed it the next, they buried the cables 2 days later once OOPS has been out and took care of all the markings. There's being fiber put in all over the city of Bryan. Thinking it's Frontier, but I'm told it's Omni, I don't know. So at this point, Mr. Betts once before came before council and wanted to streamline our government. At that time, I fought hard against it, and I gave you the whole history of all the times it came before the community and it got voted down. I think it's time again to look at what we're really getting out of BPA. I know that's a strong statement, but to be honest with you, this situation, each of you don't need to be you don't have the technical background, and you're relying on somebody else, and you're being bamboozled. So,
Can I,
Before you you had thrown some numbers out, 8,600 population with the actual number that would be, I missed those numbers.
Mary Leatherman said that she, in her statement, that the population of Bryan, and for the review of 2022, there was an average of 177 views per meeting for the council. And she based that on the population of 8,600. Well, only 16.6% of the population, based on the census, is 18 years and above. So there's a whole lot of people that aren't included in the 8,600. So you have more
18 and under.
like 518 adults,
Okay.
which is
That's what I was.
which is about 34% viewing rate.
we don't only have 500 and some adults.
I'm just telling you what the census said, and I'm basing it on the 8,600 number that the statement was made.
There's maybe 16% under 18.
Under 18.
No, it was 18 and above. That's what was
Well,
published.
FAFSA's messed up with the federal government, our census could be too. Sorry, you would get that, wouldn't you, Dad? Mr. Metz, really quick, I struggle with this because I'm a non-voting member of BPA, and obviously I report to council on an administrative level. But the truth is, the reason those statements were read first here is because our meeting is the first day, and then theirs is on Tuesday. So it's just the sequence of how our meetings go. The first statement that I read was provided by BMU, and it was not provided by BMU until after the paper and the agenda had already gone out. But there was a cutoff dead date that they were done, and I had to report it, so that's why it wasn't in the paper. The other thing with respect to this council is they are relying on the communications department and BMU, as they should be able to, but their role over BPA is strictly the budget as a whole. They bring it in, they say, this is what we're gonna spend, this is why. They get to say yes or no.
Okay.
And not on employee wages, just the actual capital things.
Well, with that statement, what I was leading up to is if the Bryan City Council wants to move forward with continuing to push audio video out to, it sounds like we're no longer going to use YouTube for some reason, which is very confusing, and BPA decides not, you could independently go down that road and get there. I just feel we're making a big mistake based on the feedback that people have reached out to me of not continuing with audio video for a community of the year the size of Bryan, and with a budget of $56.7 million.
Thank you.
Please don't leave, though, before you give me your email address.
I can send you mine.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll get that email to you, though.
Up next is item number 4, ordinance. John, please number read.
Ordinance number 12, 2024, an ordinance providing for annual appropriations for the city of Bryan for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2024, and declaring an emergency. There's one item in this amended appropriation, and it's to appropriate an insurance reimbursement that we received in the streets department for an accident that occurred some time ago with the street sweeper, not the city's fault.
I'll move to suspend.
Second.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And Mary?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Rick?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And Mary?
Yes. Item number 5 is a status form change.
Good evening. I'm requesting a wage increase for the street commissioner due to the recent street department union negotiations that narrowed the pay between the top of the union pay scale and his current salary.
And we currently have some percentage that we go by as a standardization for all positions that are in a administrative or whatever you call that.
So to answer that, we typically try to pull comps from other communities that are like in size and responsibility to Bryan. And then we set that with the wage committee and council for the department head. And then the assistant department head, we try to keep within a 15% range.
Okay, so there's a standard percent, it's not willy-nilly, that's my point.
Correct.
All right.
I'll motion to approve.
Jim,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
John,
Yes,
and Mary.
Yes. That concludes the items on the agenda. With that, we'll go around the room. Mayor, do you have anything?
I have a couple things. I know several months ago, the golf cart conversation was reinvigorated within the community. So we have been working internally and also with legal on a potential golf cart ordinance, low-speed vehicle. And also what that would look like for inspections through the police department, and it's involved just about every department. There will be tags the engineering department's kind of looked into for licensure for every year, just after they've been inspected. I'm going to have them all, I just sent it to them tonight, one more look over what Mark has approved, and also our municipal prosecutor, since if there would be any prosecuting on those, he would be involved. So once they do that, we should have it on the agenda for your first reading and discussion, and any edits you guys may want to make, or just any of those for the April 15th agenda. So that, years ago, before, were you on council when it was discussed? Okay, so it's before all of our time. Some of these folks were here. It was a very heated topic, so I just want to make sure everyone knows that that golf cart ordinance is going to be reviewed by council on April 15th for a first reading and into discussion. Also, we had a letter sent to the city from the Department of Commerce Liquor Division, and basically every year, the Class C and D liquor permits, which for C are basically carry out wine sales, beer sales, and then D is any of our established restaurants and VFWs and those kind of things. But if there was any reason for us to object for their automatic submission and renewal, that goes through on June 1st. I talked to the police chief, he had no reason for any of those establishments not to get renewed, so the administration recommendation is that you do nothing. But if you do want to object to any of them, we have until May 2nd. If you do not, we don't have to do anything, and it just goes through the Department of Commerce.
what's the relationship between this and
The Trex? The Trexes that we did, or,
no,
okay.
that's probably even a better question. Mine was more elementary, which was, what's the relationship, and maybe it's exactly what you're talking about, but what's the relationship between what you just presented and like, what was that writing, the state liquor store? Is that's still up for like,
That is-
who's gonna get it?
Yes, so they've taken those applications and they are reviewing them, and we have not heard, but that will be established in Bryan because it has to be 2 miles from the city square, which is basically the courthouse. And they had multiple applicants, so they are reviewing those currently.
You have any idea how many? I'm just curious.
I don't.
That's all right. Now you can answer your own question. I think it's
It
a good
has,
one. Thank you.
thank you, it has absolutely nothing to do with the Trex. Those are actually, when you guys get letters, even for the renewals, those are for new, like name change or venue change. And then the Trex, obviously you would, because that's economic development, and we're actually asking them to add a liquor permit that's not part of our census count. These are just everybody that's already existing within the city are on an automatic renewal every year, June 1st. Now, in all the times that I have been dealing with this as a mayor, so we're on year 7, I've not received this type of letter, but we did get it. So I wanted to make sure you guys were aware. But it was very clear in the letter, if there were no objections from the city, that we did nothing and just let it go through. And again, that's the administrative recommendation to council.
Can I make a golf cart comment?
Absolutely.
Recommendation?
Sure.
Yeah, actually, recommendation. Because I was sitting here thinking, I don't think anybody here, I remember reading about it
Yeah, me
when
too.
I was like 15.
No.
I'm kidding. Yeah, exactly. They have like a newspaper here.
Put that in
If
the
we could have a summation, because you have people you say that were here, just a summation what the pros and cons were and how it would be addressed now? Get me? Pros and cons of 19, probably what, 88 to 92 range, 90-ish range?
2010.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I lived,
2010.
yeah,
I was
it
here.
was more, more recent than
So,
your
but
15
something
year
between, you know, what happened in 2010, pro-con, and how is it going to be addressed now? That would be helpful, I
So,
would assume, for all of us, since none of us have that background.
I mean, speaking off the cuff, and Bryan probably would be best to speak about this, also maybe Chief Poole and Ben. I don't know how much of the discussion you guys had in 2010, but I know you were all in your roles. Yep, Mr. Whelan wants to speak. Come on up to the podium.
Well, it dealt with Main and High Street and 4 lanes of traffic.
Right.
So the biggest contention back then was, and Dick Reed, Dick Wright, I mean, they were on council and they were somewhat opposed to it because we're unique in our community that we have 2 state routes that intersect. Not a lot of communities have 2 state routes that intersect, and the problems in the past was that they were afraid someone driving 20 mile an hour was gonna get ran over. I mean, you heard Stu Rosendahl say people were running 100 mile an hour down Main Street. You know,
Well, there's a lot
that
of
was,
trucks, too.
historically, that was their
Yes,
concern.
Semis.
I mean, department heads back then didn't really address many concerns at all. I just remember what council said, and it was typically, they did not want them on Main and High Street. They wanted to keep the control and keep somebody from getting killed in a high-speed vehicle running over a low-speed, smaller vehicle that wasn't seen. So
Is this proposal including that as well?
It covers the precautions, we think,
Yeah.
where you can cross at a stoplight only, you can't drive down Main and High.
Okay.
We also prohibit them going anywhere like walking paths, bike paths, park property.
The flavor is to
grass.
try and keep them in the neighborhoods and off
Right.
of the state routes.
Well, I certainly understand, based on my background, I certainly understand people that have mobility issues, that would help. To be able to maybe go to certain places to eat or to shop or whatever.
Mobility issues, if you are a handicap placard, you
You can get
can do that.
Okay, well, that would be the only.
Yeah, what was
I don't
the
need to
gentleman's name?
discuss
John
this
Ramsey
now, I'm
Thiel?
sorry.
Yeah.
But it would be helpful, I don't need to speak for them, never have, never
Right.
will. But it would be helpful for me to have some general, which you've already.
That was the
said.
main one,
That was the main
was the
one.
speed, yeah.
If you
Yep.
could put that there, it would be helpful for our discussion on April, whatever.
15th. Tax day, so you gotta pay your taxes and then come here and talk about golf carts.
That's okay, I can do that.
And since John brought it up, something that I would like to hear is from our personal law enforcement here in Bryan and any other communities that may have, what kind of problems they've run into, if anything.
Yeah, and I've pulled Tiffin, and then we've also talked to, obviously, John has some history with Defiance, and Captain Mendez has some history with Napoleon, and both those communities allow them, and Waseon as well. So we've kind of tried to do, Captain Mendez was really great and pulled several local communities too that he knew had them, and also their licensure process and inspection process through the PD. One of the things with our parks, though, is our parks sometimes, especially this time of year, are very wet, and we want to make sure, especially with the walking paths we've put in and everything, that we keep golf carts off of those areas, because we don't want them rutting up, and we certainly don't want them getting in the way of children that might be riding a
Certainly the
scooter.
golf disc area. And
Yeah.
Let's keep that in mind.
That's right, we're keeping that real nice. But, there's obviously some community members that have spoken out to many of us, whether it be during campaign season or coming to council, that want this re-engaged. I will tell you that the city of Defiance has made it so restrictive, it's because they really, I don't think, want golf carts in their community. You almost can't leave your specific housing neighborhood in a golf cart. They've made it pretty tough. Napoleon, I believe, is a little more open on golf cart usage. I feel ours is a really good compromise for the folks that may not want it. I personally don't want to get stuck driving 24 miles an hour behind a golf cart because I like to go, my speed. With my cruise control, I use cruise control in the city. I sure do, because now you laugh, Mr. Hoopy, but I've seen you in the logs. You have the NASCAR in your blood too. Put that cruise control on. Anyway, yeah, I think we found a way, we think, that should be pretty agreeable to everybody, whether they want them or don't. But that's really up for you guys to decide, so once we start digging through those, it's pretty clear cut on what we are going to present to you. And again, you guys can add and subtract and do things, and then we just have to make sure we pass that through legal before you would pass anything on a final measure. Sound fair?
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you for your
Absolutely.
time.
Thank you. Any department heads?
Yes.
Come on, Jason.
I just want to let everybody know that April 18th and 19th is the trash drop-off at the street department, and that's from 1 to 7 on the 18th and 19th, and then on the 20th from 8 a.m. to noon, which is Saturday.
Thank you.
That's it.
Anyone else? Newspapers, do you have anything?
Thanks.
With that, we're down in a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Discuss executive session for pending or imminent litigation.
Mr. Oswald moved.
I'll second.
Steve? Steve?
Yes.
Jim? Rick?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And Mary?
Yes.